Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, April 6th. I'm Laura Cornfield, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. Former president and convicted rapist Moshe Katsav will remain behind bars. In a dramatic decision, the Israel Prison Service Parole Board today rejected Katsav's request for an early release from jail. It was the third hearing convened by the parole board to discuss Katsav's plea after serving two-thirds of a 7-year sentence on charges of rape and sexual harassment. In its 27-page ruling, the board said that throughout his incarceration, Katsav had not displayed any remorse and views himself as the victim. At last week's hearing behind closed doors, the former head of state refused to accept responsibility for his actions or express regret. At all the hearings, the prosecution maintained that Katsav's failure to do so shows he is not entitled to an early release, as he has not gone through the prison's rehabilitation program for sex offenders. Katsav's lawyers said they would appeal the decision. The soldier involved in the shooting of the disarmed Palestinian terrorist outside of Hebron nearly 2 weeks ago will remain confined to an army base until the end of proceedings against him. A military court yesterday rejected the prosecution's request to return the soldier to full detention. A judge ruled that the soldier's claim that he feared the terrorist posed an imminent danger and that he could be wearing an explosive belt was credible. At the same time, the judge noted the soldier's arrest was fully justified due to the fact he may have shot the terrorist again out of revenge and without an operational reason, something that goes against the values of the army and the Jewish state. Prosecutors intend to file charges, apparently of manslaughter, against the soldier by the end of the week. Another hearing on the matter is slated for tomorrow. Meanwhile, the Hebron shooting incident continues to cause intense public uproar. Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon has once again come out against attacks on the IDF and its commanders for condemning the incident. Ya'alon expressed concern over the general atmosphere, stressing that he will not allow what he termed gang leaders to determine the rules of engagement. Speaking in Herzliya, the defense minister lashed out against cabinet ministers who have fueled the debate without having credible knowledge of events. Ya'alon also spoke out against protests supporting the arrested soldier, which he said could have harmful consequences. He said those who blindly back the soldier don't back the army's laws, emphasizing that it was important to both win the battle and remain humane. Earlier, I spoke to former defense minister and senior diplomat Moshe Ahrens about ramifications of the Hebron shooting affair.
Well, I think it would have been preferable if politicians at all levels had refrained from commenting on this particular incident and had awaited the results of the investigation and the trial by the Army authorities to see what the conclusions there are. So I don't really want to add to the many comments that have already been made. I think it is clear that the judges are going to have a tough time trying to put themselves in the place of the soldier who was obviously under stress in a rather difficult and complicated situation to see how they would judge his behavior at that time.
Professor,
and beyond that, I think it's best to await the results of the investigation and the trial and see what the judges have to say.
But of course, we're also hearing a lot of criticism directed at IDF Chief of Staff Gadi Eisenkot, who is taking flack for condemning the soldiers' actions. How damaging do you think this is to the overall morale of the Army?
Well, as I said, I think it would have been better if these comments had been reserved and people, I would say, even including our Chief of Staff, who I respect greatly, had awaited the outcome of the investigation. It is obviously a very complex issue that probably is very difficult and maybe impossible to judge at first sight.
Let's take a look now at the Palestinian issue and the stalemate in peace negotiations. We heard the Prime Minister invite PA Chairman Abbas for talks. In light of the recent upsurge in violence, what are the chances we'll see a resumption of meetings?
Well, resumptions of talks there may very well be. The Prime Minister has invited Mahmoud Abbas, and Mahmoud Abbas has said that he would be glad to re-enter negotiations. But there is a very obvious difficulty, and that is that Mahmoud Abbas really does not represent all the Palestinians. It's really not at all clear how many Palestinians are represented by him. I think he's not held in very high regard amongst Palestinians in Judea and Samaria. He has a very serious competitor, Hamas, who I think will disown any agreements that he might come to or anything he may have to say in these negotiations. So the meeting, I hope, will take place, will likely take place, but it's very difficult to be optimistic about the outcome.
Is a two-state solution still the only viable solution at this point?
Well, there's a big question about this whether the two-state solution is really viable. And in my own opinion, it is not a viable solution. And I think more and more people are coming to that conclusion, Israelis as well as Palestinians.
What do you make of opposition leader Isaac Herzog's plan to separate from the Palestinians?
I think that it is very, very difficult for us, Israelis, Jewish Israelis, to separate ourselves from the Palestinians. We are living together. There are 1 million Palestinian Arabs who are Israeli citizens. There's no way that we can separate ourselves from them. I find it hard to believe that we can separate ourselves from the Palestinians in East Jerusalem. They are today an integral part of day-to-day life in Jerusalem. Taxi drivers and bus drivers and people who work at hotels and doctors who work at hospitals and nurses who work at hospitals and patients who come to the hospitals in the area. So I think that people are talking about separating are really not being realistic at all. So as far as East Jerusalem is concerned, I think we have to make big investments in the infrastructure there in order to make them feel more at home in the city of Jerusalem. I don't think putting up more walls is going to do anything for us. As far as Judea and Samaria is concerned, well, most of the walls are up already, and I don't know if they're doing much good.
Let's turn now to politics. You're a senior member of the Likud party. In fact, one might even say you were. Yeah. One might say you are responsible for introducing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu into the political ring. Netanyahu is now marking 10 years in power, and we're constantly witnessing attempts to override the thin coalition from parties that claim the government has become too centered and doesn't represent the interests of the right. Can the Likud maintain its power base as the ruling party?
Well, the fact is that it's done that for quite a long time now. And Netanyahu has been elected, 3 times? And it doesn't look like there's any serious rival on the horizon at the moment. So can the Likud continue to maintain its power base? I think the answer is yes.
Professor Moshe Ahrens, thank you so much for joining us on IBA News, and congratulations on your award.
Thank you.
Professor Ahrens, who also served as ambassador to the United States, is set to receive a special Lifetime Achievement Award from the Nefesh B'Nefesh organization during a ceremony at the Knesset honoring exemplary Olim next month. Jewish Home Knesset member Bezalel Smotrich has sparked public outrage, saying he supports the separation of Arab and Jewish mothers in maternity wards in Israeli hospitals. Smotrich's comments came in response to an Israel radio report that hospitals across the country have been separating Arab and Jewish mothers in the wards if the mothers request it. While the health ministry banned such moves, the report indicated that a number of hospitals do segregate patients. Smotrich fueled the flames, saying he doesn't want his wife lying next to a woman whose baby may murder his child in another 20 years. He added that his wife, after giving birth, would like to rest rather than have a party like the Arab women do after they deliver. His words drew angry reactions from many lawmakers. Knesset member Abed El-Hakim Haji Yahya of the Joint Arab List sent a letter to Knesset Speaker Yuli Edelstein accusing Smotrich of racism and demanding that he be suspended. The family of Muhammad Halabi, the 19-year-old Palestinian terrorist who stabbed to death 2 Israelis in the Old City last October, received a new villa with the help of donations from the Palestinian public. The new house was purchased through a campaign called Building Houses for Free Men, whose aim is to rebuild the homes of Palestinian terrorists demolished by Israel. Halabi's family home, located in El Bira outside Ramallah, was destroyed by the army in January. The new complex, located in a village near Ramallah, sits on a 600-square-meter lot and cost $173,000. Halabi, a university student, murdered Rabbi Nehemiah Levi and Aaron Benita in a stabbing attack in Jerusalem's Old City on October 3rd. He was shot and killed by border police forces. The growing threat of attacks by Islamic State and other radical jihadi forces operating in the Sinai Peninsula has led the U.S. administration to consider withdrawing American forces stationed there. According to a CNN report, the U.S. believes the soldiers can be replaced by unmanned technology capable of fulfilling the duty of monitoring the Israel-Egypt border. Washington is currently discussing the issue with Israel and Egypt. Such a move would see the withdrawal of 700 U.S. military personnel stationed in the Sinai Peninsula. Another 11 countries have soldiers deployed in the area. Israel and Egypt have yet to comment on the issue, but if a decision is made by President Barack Obama to pull out U.S. troops, the move will require the approval of all signatories to the peace accord. Another punitive measure by an Arab country against Hezbollah, the Egyptian satellite company Nilesat, has notified Lebanon's communications ministry that as of this morning, it has stopped providing services to Hezbollah's Al-Manar television network. The Egyptian satellite company said the decision was made due to the content of programming on the Hezbollah channel, which encourages sectoral extremism. Last month, Hezbollah was declared a terrorist organization by the Arab League and the Gulf Cooperation Council. Since then, the group has been subject to a series of economic sanctions. U.S. Democrat presidential hopeful Bernie Sanders may have gained the lead in the Wisconsin primaries, but clearly has yet to get his facts right when talking about Israel. In an interview with the New York Daily News earlier this week, Sanders suggested Israel had killed over 10,000 innocent Palestinian civilians in Gaza during Operation Protective Edge in 2014. While he acknowledged that he was unsure of exact figures, he accused Israel of indiscriminately killing Palestinians, leveling houses, and bombing hospitals. Figures cited by the UN Human Rights Council said approximately 2,250 Palestinians were killed in the 51-day war, and half of that number were civilians. Israel said half of those killed were terrorists and blamed the high civilian toll on Hamas, who deliberately placed rocket launchers and tunnels within the civilian population. 73 Israelis were killed in the war, the majority soldiers. The historic Jezreel Valley Railway, known as Rekevet HaEmek in Hebrew, is expected to hit the tracks this November when operations are slated to begin. IBA's Margot Dudkevich has more in this report.
This week, workers will finish laying the tracks on the last part of the railway between Haifa and Beit Sha'an. A one-train carriage is already running and inspecting the 60-kilometre stretch between the two cities. In 6 months' time, the train will start operating, passing over 23 bridges, travelling through 3 tunnels and stopping at 5 train stations. The project comes with a price tag of 4 billion shekels. As the deadline looms closer, realizing the potential, investors and real estate agents are pouring to the area, where a 4-room apartment will cost less than 1 million shekels. Eli Bada, the mayor of Migdal HaEmek, says plans are already in the making to build 6,000 housing units in his city, doubling its population. Adding an industrial park has been built near the railway tracks. Once work on the last part of the track between Haifa and Beit Sha'an ends, the public will enjoy a 50-minute journey, passing through the picturesque Jezreel Valley as it chugs back and forth between Haifa and Beit Sha'an. Margot Dudkevich, IBA News.
Well, get those castanets ready. The Days of Flamenco Dance Festival kicks off tomorrow at the Suzanne Dalal Center in Tel Aviv. Liat Raz, a flamenco dancer and designer, spoke with IBA about the performance and her passion surrounding flamenco.
The main show is a Spanish show. It's Bailes de Gitanos, and all the rest are local shows.
Well, for the people who are not initiated into flamenco dancing, will people in the audience be able to understand what's going on stage?
Yes, of course, because the flamenco tells a story. It's all the express flamenco. It's a dancing of story. It's a dancing of expression, and you really can feel what's happening on the stage all the time. You can feel your story inside the flamenco story all the time.
What is it about flamenco that makes it exciting? I mean, is it the rhythm? Is it the dancing, the costumes?
Flamenco, it's a way of life. It's not just a costume, and it's not something that I can say that it's only a costume or it's only the castanets. But flamenco is a whole word. It's a music, it's the expression, it's dancing. It is many, many ways to express yourself. Okay, so it's not only a dancing.
So Liat, tell us one more time, when is the festival?
The festival is going to happen this weekend, the 7th to the 9th, in Suzanne Dalal Center. All the tickets are sales in Suzanne Dalal website, and I really invited you all.
All right, Liat Raz, thanks so much for joining IBA News.
Thank you.
In local money matters, shares were mixed on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange while the shekel was mixed in foreign currency trading. Here are the late afternoon numbers. And no change expected tomorrow in our springtime weather, but a heat wave is predicted over the weekend. Here are the highs and lows for the next 24 hours at home and abroad. And that's all for this newscast. Ari O'Sullivan will be here tomorrow, same time, same channel. Make sure to join him. I'm Laura Cornfield, wishing you a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem.